Today, we're going to be breaking down the top 5 routes ever ran. So coming in at number 5, we have this slant out route here from Stefon Diggs versus a press coverage DB. Now, this route is insanely hard to run versus press coverage, and we're ultimately going to talk about why. With each one of these routes, we're going to explain a couple things that makes this route so great and how you guys can apply this to your own route running if you are a wide receiver. So a slant out route is a lot like a whip route, for example. A whip route is where you break, cut 3 steps to the slant, and then whip back out to the sideline, but you keep your chest and your hips parallel towards the line of scrimmage. You never turn your back. A slant out, or some people call this a blaze out, is where you sell the slant exactly the same way, but you turn your back and you go towards the sideline. Now, this is insanely hard against press coverage because what we have to do is we have to get this DB to crash so hard on my slant break while he is on like my back hip and my back shoulder. It is very, very easy to put the brakes on this route and then end up running right back into this DB, but Diggs doesn't do that. Now, what gets this defender to crash so hard, and this is something every wide receiver needs to emphasize on any double move, is 3 specific things. Number 1, what sells a double move is your eyes and your body language, because that's ultimately what a DB is reading in the first place. He's going to be reading our hips. So as soon as we break off to that slant, my hips and my shoulders need to commit. Hips, shoulders, and eyes to the QB. That's what draws this guy down. Now, second thing that's going to help us sell it is my speed. DBs are literally taught when expecting a double move route, if you're in a double move situation, if a wide receiver breaks on the first cut and then changes his speed, expect him to run some type of double move. So we got to make sure that we have the same speed. We got to make sure we have body language that sells like I'm getting a slant route, and then I need to be gaining ground with long strides. Everything about this needs to look like a slant until it's not a slant. That's ultimately what Diggs does on this. So this is an insanely tough route to run against press coverage. That's why number 5 on our list is this slant out route here from Stefon Diggs. Now, coming in at number 4, we have this corner route here from Cooper Kupp versus outside shade press. Now, I think this is a great route just considering the circumstances. This is a playoff game, a lot of meaning behind this game, and this is a big route, I believe, on 3rd down. Now, before we explain this route, you guys, if you're a wide receiver watching this video and you guys would like a daily workout schedule that you can follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our elite wide receiver training package. It is 8 weeks, guys, 2 full months of daily gym workouts and field workouts that wide receivers can do. We break down the exact sets and reps to follow and video examples of each drill, each gym exercise, so you know what to do, how to perform it, and we put it into a daily schedule for you. Monday through Saturday, Monday this, Tuesday this, etc. We have rest days, conditioning days, the works. So guys, check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested in our elite wide receiver training package. Let's get back to this video. So number 4 on our list is this corner route here from Cooper Kupp. So he takes an inside release, gives a move at the top called the rocker step, makes this DB fall, and then he's able to get a ton of separation for this catch downfield. So again, playoff game, stakes are high. That's why this is number 4 on my list. So anytime as a wide receiver, this is so hard to do because, like, if you've never played wide receiver, you don't understand how hard it is to be able to run a route towards a DB's leverage and press coverage. What I mean by that is like running an outside breaking route like a corner or an out route when you have a DB who's sitting outside shade press. Because in a perfect world, what we would love to do is we'd love to release to the outside. DB would be on our inside hip. We cut and we have all this space. But if that DB lines up pre-snap outside shade, he ain't going to give up that leverage. So I can't force it. If I just try to run around him, this DB's going to get hands, disrupt timing, and squeeze me all the way to the sideline. My quarterback won't have room. So we have to take what he gives me. So that's why Kupp attacks his leverage and takes this inside release. Now, on this inside release, our number 1 goal is to squeeze past this DB. I call it getting skinny. Some people call it running tight to the DB. You want to get hip to hip with him because what that allows us to do is get to a position called stacking the DB, where we could get this DB to trail my back hip. Now, this is a great position for separation, right? We take this inside release, and if that DB is literally right on my hip and I'm not able to stack him, the break's a little bit more challenging. Can it be done? Absolutely. You would take your inside hand, you put it on the back of this DB's shoulder or his hip, and you would slip under him. Wouldn't be as fast, but if we could work to stack him, we'd get a lot of separation. And Kupp uses this move called a rocker step. So a rocker step is where you step in the direction you were going first. So we're going to the outside, so we step with my outside foot first. We push off of that step and sell back to the inside. And DBs will always bite on this type of move, guys, when we release opposite of their leverage, because DBs have this rule called the 70-30 rule. They say 70% of the time when a receiver releases inside, he's running an inside breaking route. So if we could use that rocker step when I take an inside release on an outside breaking route, that is a lethal way to get separation. Then obviously we know the result. Kupp uses this type of move, gets separation, is able to win over the top. So that's why it's number 4 on my list. Now, coming in at number 3 is this post route versus an inside shade off man coverage DB that Amari Cooper runs. Now, how I gauge these routes is I gauge them by just ultimate skill level from our experience with the, just offensive football, just football in general, I guess you could say, how hard these routes are actually to run, and then the virality of these routes. All of these routes that I've discussed, I'm sure you guys have seen them at one point or another, because these are all routes that went super viral on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all over the place. So this route was a route that was everywhere at the time it was ran. This is when Amari Cooper was obviously with the Cowboys. But guys, running a post route at about 8 yards when you have a DB sitting inside shade right at 8 yards is a very, very tough task to do. But Amari Cooper doesn't. Let's explain how he does it. So he comes off the ball, attacks this DB's leverage a little bit, then goes at this DB's outside shoulder and hip, gets him to flip, and then is able to win on that post route. So let's talk about it, right? So this DB's inside shade. It is no different than what we talked about in press coverage. Wherever his shade is, wherever his leverage is, that's what he's trying to take away. He's trying to stop the inside breaking routes. But the reason why he's in off man coverage is he's trying to stop the deeper inside breaking routes, like a post or like a dig, right? So as a wide receiver, what we could do is we could literally run off the ball and we could attack this DB's outside shoulder, outside hip. I could run hard, a lot like a double move, you guys. Selling routes, double moves, single moves, it's really all relative. It's pretty similar. You want to run with good strides, or I should say long strides, but mainly the same strides. You just don't want to get all the way up to the break point and then start to take shorter strides because you're preparing for the cut, right? You want the same strides, you want the same speed, and you want the same body language, all going to his outside shoulder and outside hip. Now, DBs are smart, though, you guys. It's rare that a wide receiver would run a fade where he just tries to run around a DB. Normally, if we have to run a fade route to the outside, we would stem a DB to the inside, try to get him to move, and then work to the outside. So Cooper is able to do that, but he's pairing his routes together. So you see when he comes on the ball, he starts to stem this DB to the inside because that's how he would run a fade. Selling fade is more than us just running hard, more than us just selling vertical with my speed. It's also about my stem. It's also about how I set up my route. So he accomplishes the same thing by attacking this DB's outside shoulder and outside hip, by flipping him open, getting him to think that we're going deep and then slipping underneath him, right? But he does it a little bit different way. He doesn't just run at the outside hip and shoulder. He eventually gets there, but he stems him inside first to make it look like how he would run that fade route. And then he works to this outside shoulder for 3 hard steps. You see how his hips, his shoulders, his eyes, long strides, good speed, all going at that outside hip, puts the brakes on, and then is able to separate. This is a very, very, again, guys, tough route to run. Only if you play receiver, you understand how tough this route is to run right into that DB's leverage. So great job stemming inside, working at that outside hip and shoulder, and then able to win on that post. So coming in at number 2, we have this 5-yard out route from Michael Thomas. Now, I know I see that seems like an easy route to run, but this was one of those routes that never gets old, was posted everywhere because of how Michael Thomas ultimately runs this route. So let's play at full speed. So he comes off the ball, attacks this DB's inside hip and inside shoulder, then he's able to get separation on this 5-yard out, right? And then he ultimately is able to score. So let's talk about this, right? And obviously great yards after the catch, great yak on this play. So Michael Thomas has his split cut down. That means you're lined up closer to the offensive line. So a smart DB is going to line up outside shade. Why would he cut his split down? He's either cutting his split down to run some type of outside breaking route or to run a drag. And this DB probably has some type of help inside, whether it's a safety or a linebacker dropping into zone, whatever. So he's not necessarily threatened by the drag. He's just trying to take away the outside route. So what we want to do as a wide receiver, in this case, if I have to run a 5-yard out and he's sitting outside shade and in press, I don't want to try to force it and get around him. Because remember, just like that corner route from Cooper Kupp, he's going to get hands and he's going to squeeze me to that sideline. We want to try to attack his inside shoulder and inside hip all the way up to 5, and the goal is to get him to flip open, just similar to that post route. So Michael Thomas gives a little jab, attacks DB's leverage outside, then he bursts to the inside, right? And again, you see his hips, his shoulders, his strides, his speed. Everything is saying that he's going to the inside. Notice a trend here, guys. All these top-tier route runners, all these top-tier routes are able to sell by 3 specific things: body language and eyes, speed, and then strides, keeping everything the same. And then he goes right at that inside shoulder and hip. He gets that DB to commit. He puts the back of his hand, or puts his hand on the back of the DB's shoulder. You could also put it on the back of his hip, and he works this throw-by move. So now, since he attacked that inside shoulder and inside hip, we got the DB to move, but we didn't sacrifice space. We still gave my quarterback space to the outside to be able to lead me, give me a good ball, and then turn upfield. So we're going to play this again one more time. So great job by Thomas attacking that inside hip and shoulder, and then breaking out. That's why that's number 2 on my list. So now, coming in at number 1 is going to be a route that everybody saw from Justin Jefferson. It was either this past season or the season before, but this is something called a return route. Okay, you guys? So let's play this full speed. So Jefferson sells like he's running the outside, puts the brakes on, jabs back to the inside, catches this ball, and then is able to score. This route I saw posted by every single receiver account, every single NFL highlight account, probably twice, probably more than just once. So let's talk about why this route is so great. So it's just like that slant out route that we saw Stephon Diggs run. But this is instead, he's faking an out, back in, then whipping back out. So it's like kind of like a fake return route in a sense. It's not so much a return route, it's a fake return route because you have a whip route, which is where we break to the slant, then whip back outside. Then you have a return route where you act like you're running an out, then you whip back to the inside. Then a variation of a whip route is called a jerk route, where you break to the whip, fake like you're going back out, then you go back inside. So this is, in a sense, a fake return route where he goes back to the out route. So he bursts up to the outside, full speed, selling this thing, puts the brakes on, flips his hips and his shoulders parallel to the line of scrimmage, gets his head around. That is key on this jerk route or this fake return route. Fakes a jab like he's going back to the inside on the return, gets that DB to jump, and then you see the amount of space he's able to get to the outside. That is a great route right there. That's probably one of the best routes ran in modern football history. That's probably my number one, just simply because of the virality of this route, the separation he was able to get, and then obviously it's Justin Jefferson is doing his thing.